Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in a half shell, turtle power. Yeah, I'm a fan. In case you can't see my Ninja Turtle shirt that I'm wearing, I'm obviously going to have some thoughts on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which is now streaming on Paramount Plus, and it does have audio description. And this thing has been getting just a really surprising amount of critical praise, to the point where it looks like it might get an Oscar nomination for animated feature, which is shocking. I still now that I've seen the film, I'm still like, I don't know if that can happen. Can it? Are they going to do it? I don't know how beautifully animated this is. That's the problem about being a blind film critic, is this film could be luscious. It could just be absolutely, like chef's kiss. And I'm kind of missing out on that. But I'm going to talk about the plot and the story. And as a pretty big Ninja Turtles fan from way back in the day, we'll see. We'll see. I even had the opportunity when I was a little kid. My parents took me to some convention. I vaguely remember it, and I got a graphic novel of Ninja Turtles, and I got Eastman and Laird to sign it. They were appearing somewhere, so of course I didn't understand the value of that comic book necessarily. I have no idea where it is, but I do remember it happening. It's out there somewhere. There's a signed hardback comic book of Ninja Turtles signed by Eastman and Laird that a little child was like, I don't know if I like the comic book version of these guys. I was young. I loved Ninja Turtles. I loved the cartoons and the toys, and I really liked the movies. So, yeah. I'm kind of protective of the Ninja Turtles universe, which is why last year when they released Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I was like, no, thank you, sir. Thank you, come again later, goodbye. I don't know what happened. I don't know what you've done to the Ninja Turtles, but I do not like you. I do not want you. You may leave. And then I didn't expect that we were going to have another Ninja Turtles movie, literally the year later, with a completely different viewpoint, released on Paramount. So, I love that they both have the Nickelodeon label on them. Rise comes from the Nickelodeon show. This is kind of completely different. It's a reboot. And stay for I would say the mid-credits sequence. It's a mid-credits sequence. That sort of references, we're getting a sequel. So, at least Paramount Plus greenlights it. Sometimes films should have had sequels that didn't get greenlit. I still stand by the fact that Saban's Power Rangers absolutely should have had a sequel. I don't know what happened with that, but the fact that a Power Rangers movie got that much buzz and made that much money and they didn't make a sequel to it is baffling. It's absolutely baffling that they got that much press around the Power Rangers movie. And they were like, no, it underperformed. It did not underperform. What were your expectations? So, I feel like this did really well for what it was, for what it could have done. It could have just been like a fart in the wind. You're kind of changing up the franchise a little bit. It's a little bit different. There are some changes here, but they're not the kind of changes, unlike the Turtles using magic in the other series. I don't know why they need magic. Anyway, but this just has them, they're young. They're younger. They're actually teenagers. It really embraces the teenage part of this. And so they're not necessarily master ninjas. They're just sort of solid fighters. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they fought the Cobra Kai dojo. that they would come out on top. Maybe they would, but you don't get that feeling that they have a very particular set of skills that they've achieved over a long career. Because they're good, they're teenagers, so they're still learning the ropes and figuring out their weapons and their roles, and it's nice here. I also really like the fact that even in the narration, even in the audio description, all the characters were called by their nicknames instead of hearing the full-on name: Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael. You heard Leo, Donnie, Mikey, and Raph. You know, it just was easier. It just was like quicker. And it felt like it was reflective of the fact that kids sometimes, when they have longer names like that, don't always go by the whole name. You know, I feel like if there's a Michelangelo in your school, he probably doesn't go by Michelangelo. He probably does go by Mikey. So, and also there's a really fun bit that they do with that where they're thinking about enrolling. They have dreams of being able, they want to be part of the world. It's the Little Mermaid. They want to be, you know, I want to be where the people are. They want to get up there and be among the humans, but Splinter has told them to stay away from humans because humans are evil. But they still like really want to do things like high school. They think high school is fascinating, and they're looking at these like high school enrollment forms, and it asks them what their last name is, and they're like, "Do we have a last name?" So they start breaking up their names into, which helps when you're being called something when you're, you know. So Leo's makes for lots of jokes because his name would be Leo Nardo. His last name would be Nardo. I liked it. It's a good joke. I mean, this one is fun. It's fine, and it doesn't break canon to the point where I think people who are longtime Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fans are going to be like, no. The only thing that was like really obvious to me was the fact that Superfly is Baxter Stockman, but for reasons that I've been explained, they were worried about having a character that was too close to the Fly. And I was like, but Baxter Stockman has been around for like 30 years. If someone was going to sue over the existence of his character, they would have done so by now. I had a Baxter Stockman action figure. Like, and he was like turned into the Fly. You know what I'm saying? He was a fly in his little action figure as a kid. I don't understand why we needed to create Superfly. But with like, and just give him like Baxter's storyline. It's very weird. And how that somehow makes it different than the Fly. You know, if a mutant fly is the problem, it shouldn't really matter what the name of it is. And I would think that going with the character that's existed for 30 years is probably the better route to go. But I also don't really think anybody cares. I don't think they're suing people because they're like, oh, this is obviously a knockoff of the Fly. Because then you have to look at all the other mutants and go, all right, well then who's Rocksteady a knockoff of? Give me that film. You know, where'd he come from? So, and this film does feature other mutants. I would necessarily call it a mayhem. I didn't quite pick up on enough of the other mutants. I remember so many of the other mutants. There was like a duck that was Ace something that I had. I was trying to think of like all of the obscure, because they kept creating more and more mutants that they could sell as toys, right? They'd put them in like an episode of the TV series and then they like release them. So it's funny to see in the film like Mondo Gecko is pretty heavily featured. And I was like, I had him as a toy, you know, and now he's in film, and I don't know that I was ever really waiting for Mondo Gecko to make a an appearance in film, but he's here. Um, as well as Bebop and Rocksteady, which is always a plus for me. I love those guys, and it was one of the reasons I really liked the second Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movie was he actually put Bebop and Rocksteady on screen, and that for me was fan service. I don't mind fan service. Service me, give me exactly what I wanted, which has been the whole time to see Bebop and Rocksteady on screen. So one of the reasons I actually really enjoy the second. Well, the first one's not great, but the second one is pretty solid. If you're a fan of the franchise. So, Superfly has got a plan, and he's going to turn every animal, insect, whatever, into a mutant, and they'll become the dominant species because humans were mean to him. He was created in a lab along with some other mutants, and the Ninja Turtles, obviously, they had the ooze that hit them, and Splinter, and that's how they're different. And it seems like they're going to bond. Maybe the Turtles and Superfly are going to bond over their mutantisms. But luckily, the Turtles have Lil Conscience to be their guide in April O'Neil, who is also known as like Vomit Girl in this movie because she tried to do a news report one time. She's a high school student. This was like a new high school news thing, and she vomited instead. So she has a problem with anxiety. She wants to be a reporter, but her anxiety takes over and she projectile vomits. So that's a running gag for her, just for the little ones. I was there for the little ones, obviously. It's a fun action movie. The characters are cool, and I like the versions of them. I like the fact that they brought these others in. I didn't like the fact that they didn't establish them very well. They're just kind of there. Like, the film is very much about like Superfly, and then he has like some other mutants. And it would be sort of like watching a Batman film, and then like Batman is going after the Joker, but like standing around the Joker are all these other like notable Bat villains who don't really do anything or contribute. I feel like Batman fans would hate that. And so I think it's pretty valid to bring up the fact that all of the other mutants standing around are not really developed. They're just kind of there as like little cameos. Like, look at me. Aren't I cool for being here? I guess. I know nothing about your character, or will you be in the future? I would have much rather preferred less of them, and maybe like it was Superfly and Mondo Gecko, who hasn't been in the film yet. So maybe we could explore Mondo Gecko actually as a character, and then that way, as the film progresses and he makes different choices, we actually sort of are starting to develop a character who may be useful in a sequel, instead of just, hey, it's that guy that we used to have a toy of when we were kids. That's cool. That's kind of what I feel like they're going for here. It's Seth Rogen and Evan, whatever his name is, they always write films together, that wrote the script. And I was kind of disappointed in that. I feel like if they were really Ninja Turtles fans from back in the day, I think if you look at it from that perspective, that's exactly what you're doing here. You're doing that, and fans of any other franchise would absolutely hate that. So that's what you've done, is you've created a villain out of nowhere, and then you've had the other villains that we're more familiar with are just kind of standing around with very little development backstory. They don't really have lines. I mean, they kind of participate like throughout the film, but in very like minimal ways. So I feel like if you did that for anybody else, if you had if you created a new Spider-Man villain and had all the Spider-Man villains standing behind, backing that one up, and they were like mostly like quiet and very underdeveloped as characters, you'd be like, wow, it's I'm really happy to see that villain on screen finally, but why is that standing in the background? Why am I not? Why is Venom just hanging out back there? Why isn't he doing anything? You know, it's just so. It's both like cool and then at the same time, kind of not kind of disappointing just because of the way that they handled it. But I did like the film. I thought it had a lot of energy to it. It felt fresh. It was a hell of a lot better than what we got last year off of Netflix's Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it's definitely something that I feel like could start a franchise. So I'm pretty happy with it. I don't think it's necessarily the best animated feature of the year. But I also don't think it's the worst TMNT film that we've had. I'm not that big of a fan of the third one where they go to China. It's kind of a weird film, kind of just tacked on there at the end. Like they wanted to make a third Ninja Turtles movie, but they had no idea what to make it about. TMNT, the first time they made an animated movie, it's about on the maybe they're about the same level. That film was kind of fun. Raphael certainly had fun in that movie. I feel like this one has a little bit more style. For some reason, this got Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross to do the score, so we got something way better than we deserve for this film. Because especially considering this film uses so many pop songs. Like this film is more of a soundtrack film where you want to buy the soundtrack because you're like, man, that's a good list of songs to listen to. But the score was cool in between the little parts. It's hard to appreciate it though because, like I said, this film is much more of a soundtrack than score. You want to listen to the, various choices that they made, which are all kind of interesting. I think kids will like this. I think kids will love it, actually. I think it's fun. It's maybe a little bit long, but I don't know. I don't know if that matters here. I didn't feel like the film didn't justify the length. It's restarting a franchise, so it's trying to establish the characters in their new environment, like the new versions of them, and it does it well, and it establishes everybody, at least on the good guy side, pretty well, and their dynamic and relationship. It gives Superfly, voiced by Ice Cube, a solid amount of screen time. It gives everybody backstory. It just doesn't really... Superfly's henchmen, which are these other recognizable Ninja Turtles villains, are just kind of shoved to the side. And that's the only thing I really didn't like about the film. I would have much preferred less of them, and then them had backstories. So, kind of like Toy Story 3, where if they had given Superfly sort of like Lotso's storyline, how he had, he had Big Baby and the clown with him. Like he had like two things that were along with him. It wasn't just him. So it sort of became all of their backstories. That was a little bit more noticeable. This is kind of like, well, we've got a lot of people to focus on. I don't know. The audio description I thought was really pretty good. There are some times where I thought maybe the film was gonna go in a darker direction, these turtles are not in. They're in some situations where the turtles have not been in this dire strait before. So I I was worried for them at certain points. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but someone needs to save that turtle because his shell's starting to crack, you know. So it got me engaged. It kept me engaged. It gave me a good idea of what these people look like, and their various. Yeah, they have the colored eye masks and staring at each other that way, and I got a pretty decent idea of what Superfly looked like. So it's a good time. It's fun. It's a lot of action. It's some humor. It's something that I think kids will like. I don't know if it's for little ones. We've kind of aged up the turtles a little bit in terms of the content. I think we're looking more at maybe like a 7 to 14 as being a sweet spot. I don't know that this is. I don't know if like 5 to 7-year-olds maybe a little bit much for them. And there are some references here that I'm not sure that they'll get, but we'll see. It's up to you. But that would be my sweet spot range would be maybe like 7 to 14, and then also me, people my age who remember the original Ninja Turtles. So if you see a bunch of 40-year-old dudes, it's because this was our franchise back in the day. That's why. But I liked it. I'm gonna give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem a minus. I think it's pretty close to perfect. There's just some little tweaks I would have made, and would have been fine. Just a couple little things that just needled me, and but the rest of it was fine. So I did not expect to like this. This is really important for you to know. As big of a Ninja Turtles fan, I'm very critical of the Ninja Turtles and where they've been going. I did not give Rise a good grade, and it was one of my more viewed videos because I had some fans of the Nickelodeon cartoon coming in and being like, "This is not your Ninja Turtles, man. They deserve to be playing with magic." And I was like, "No, they don't. Go away, please. Just no magic." So I'm in defense of the original concept of turtles and how they started and why they're popular. Not just like, ooh, let's do anything we want with them. They could be space aliens, right, Michael Bay? No, they can't. Shut up. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I wore a Ninja Turtle shirt for this, so that's worth at least one subscribe. I should get one subscriber out of this video. How many people bothered to wear the Ninja Turtle shirt for a Ninja Turtles review? Exactly. No one. You can also go to my website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on X, Threads, or Instagram at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org, and let you know what is audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. It'll let you know who's narrating what. That's it for me today. I will review something else for you guys and see you on the other side. Cowabunga. I needed more of that. Cowabunga. Let's bring that back.